the population is rising, the climate is in a big change, and you have to do something about that. If you look in the medical side and you look about diabetes, you look about people are more, I would say, gaining weight in a good American phrase, I would say. So this is a huge problems of the world, and the food tech industry that is now right in this, starting the J curve, I would say, is trying to deal with that.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Lomitech, and sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and Birthright Excel. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Today, I'm going to talk to Chanan Schneider, the CEO of Millennium Food-Tech. He's an entrepreneur, CEO, and experienced investor in startup companies. CEO and co-founder of Millennium Food-Tech, a traded TASE venture capital fund. Before establishing Millennium, he initiated, established, and managed the FoodTech incubator in Kiryat Shmona, Israel. Chanan was the entrepreneur of IndaMed and managed startup companies such as Beta02, Nitiloop, and others, from the initiation to market penetration. As CEO of these companies, he raised significant amounts from VC funds and strategic partners in Israel and abroad. Chanan Schneider, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here as well.
Thank you for joining me today. I love talking about different industries, and today I get to talk about food tech, and I get to talk about your journey. Today, venture capitalist, previously entrepreneur. Today, investing in and supporting food tech entrepreneurs in the Israeli ecosystem. Some incredible companies, some of which I also had on the show, Savory. You also invested in other companies that have made big headlines over the last few weeks and months, which is very, very exciting. And looking over the website, one of the immediate things that I saw is sort of the messaging on what is food tech and how is it emerging, and the dissonance between the capital that is needed for it versus how much there is versus how critical it is for the future of our world. And what's happening here. So I'm excited to touch on all of these aspects with you. But before we do that, Chanan, tell me a little bit about yourself, about your journey, who you are.
Okay, so it's interesting because I'm all the time dancing between operational positions and investor positions. So I started with in the capital markets, in the Poalim capital market and discount capital markets, and when I headed the investment arm of discount capital markets and sat at the board of directors of several companies, I understood that it's great to sit on the board of directors, but for me to tell the CEO what to do or what I think he has to do, it has to be with merits. So I moved and I found a company that I established together with Yossi Gross. He's an entrepreneur in the medical side, and we established Beta02 Technologies. And then I started my journey as a CEO with heavy operation background, managing R&D and activities, raising funds from Israeli and US-based venture capitalists, did deals with big American companies such as IndaMed and Boston Scientific, Abbott, etc. And then, and then I moved to be a venture capitalist at Agate, and then moved back to manage Nitiloop, where I did a massive or a big clinical trials, FDA approvals, etc. And then, 4 years ago, when I thought about what I want to do next, I managed to be with Mr. Jacques Bear. Jacques Bear is the owner and the CEO of Temple Industries. And, he told me that a new tender is coming for the FoodTech incubators up in the north of Israel. So he told me, I don't know about startup companies and how to help them, but I know that I want to be in food tech and beverage tech. And I said, I know a lot about managing startups and helping them to grow, but I don't know a lot about food tech. But I knew that food tech is going to change the world. And then we merged basically, and I worked with the Tempo Group, and then Tnuva came and Finisterre and our crowd, and we won the tender and established Fresh Start Incubator, did the first deals, and then I moved with a group of capital markets guys, and we co-founded Millennnium Food-Tech, where I'm now the CEO. We already raised about $40 million, and we invest in food tech companies, but in the latest stage, and I would tell you in a minute what is latest stage for us mean. So
Amazing.
I'm about 4 years in this food tech, and this is really changing the world, and it's amazing. And when we talked in the medical side about $500 million companies, $1 billion companies, when you're talking about food and beverages, it's $1 trillion market share. It's amazing, and it's affecting every one of us, not on the sick, but also on the healthier guys. So just to give you, if that's okay with you, I can continue to talk.
100%.
So
go ahead.
So if that's okay with you, I will give you the framework of what we see in the Israeli ecosystem in the food tech. So
Please do.
about 7 to 8 years ago, we saw the big companies awakening and starting to try to find technologies in the places of sugar reduction, salt reduction, etc., protein, alternative protein. And then we saw migration of scientists in Israel that got grants from outside of Israel, of course, towards new technologies to food tech. So then came the science. So we saw scientists start to research on this kind of areas. And then we have the technology level. So about 4.5, 5 years ago, the first incubator in Israel, the Kitchen Hub, started together with the visionary Strauss Group headed by Ofra. Really visionary. Nobody knew about what is food tech. Everybody was, what is food tech? Who is the investor? I talked with Amir, who is the VP BizDev, about 4 years ago. He told me that he has a lot of companies, a lot of technologies, but nobody investing in that. And they have a really rough time back then. But now we saw that a lot of these companies, about 300 companies, moved from the science, the technology, into what I called a POC level, or a company that is for the company level. So the past technology, now there is a company, there is a POC, maybe they've done some pilots, and now they need money for scale up, regulation, pilots, selling, etc., etc. And this is exactly where I want to be. This is exactly how we built our team. And this is what is needed in Israel, because there is almost no dedicated fund in food tech in Israel, which is something that we can explore. But it's very interesting that there is, at least, there is Fresh Start Incubator, there is the Kitchen, Trendline is doing Ag and food tech, and there are others, and Innovation Lab with IFF Innovation Lab, etc. But there is no, the upper layer, I would say, or the next in line investment vehicle. There is none, almost none until we came.
So I think it's an interesting question, and you're posing the question of, whether this is a traditional evolutionary process that we're starting with incubators and now we're going to level up, and perhaps through this hypothesis that in the next few years we'll see some dedicated VCs emerging, like the investment group that you're running today. Take me a little bit towards this idea of food tech in general, because this is a new concept that is being spoken more and more about. I don't remember 10, 15 years ago really people working on these things, or it being mainstream for a young entrepreneur to go and say, I'm going to go into food tech. So what has been happening over the last few years, and how do you, and what is it like even to build a company in the food tech industry versus other traditional industries that we know about?
So you're absolutely right. So we didn't used to see anything in food tech, and on top of that, entrepreneurs and CEOs of these companies came from another places. So if you look at a lot of the CEOs are coming from the medical side, because this is the most closer field, I would say, to the food tech. But the big companies, and I think if you look at what is going on, you see the Glasgow COP 206 climate conference, which is, everybody is saying, and they are right, that the population is rising, the climate is in a big change, and you have to do something about that. If you look in the medical side and you look about diabetes, you look about people are more, I would say, gaining weight in a good American phrase, I would say. So this is a huge problems of the world, and the food tech industry that is now right in this, starting the J curve, I would say, is trying to deal with that. And the big companies, and the issue here is the big companies, the Nestle, Danone, of the world, and also in Israel, if you look about Nuva, Strauss, Nestle, Osem, etc., Unilever, understand that, declare that they are going to do something in these areas, and invest in that, or doing pilot on that field. So this drive the business. So this, for example, if you look at the Technion, they used to have a faculty with the title of biotechnology and food engineering, where in the biotech there were 9, in the rate of 9 researchers, and in the food engineering was one old guy that used to teach about what is technology. And
Wow.
and today after we saw a huge migration that now more than 60% in this faculty is dedicated to food tech. And I will
Wow.
give you another story just to illustrate that. So let's say that 8 years ago, the CEO of Awesome Nestle wanted to have a new snack, a new bisli in the market. So we went to do a market survey, and everybody told him, we want a bisli with a taste of shawarma. Okay, so we went back to his labs, to his lab technician, and told them, I want bisli shawarma. They said, thank you very much. Okay. And now, what are the tools that they used? Salt, sugar, protein from animals, taste, and colorants from around, synthetics, most of them. And today, all the tools are vanished. So because of the red, if you know, the red reform, where you have to pinpoint and to give a sticker on the product that you have high sugar, high fat, etc. So today, the food engineers cannot use anything. So they cannot use salt, they cannot use sugar, more sugar. They are changing their ways of how to get colorant, taste, etc., because some of them considered to be cancers. And so a protein, nobody wants to kill animals to get proteins. Nobody wants gluten anymore. And I can tell you that in a lot of these companies, when they are looking on the next 3 years, they are saying, I don't want this and this in my production line. And this
Right.
drive the industry towards that.
Now, if you're looking at the entrepreneurial perspective and more on the leadership front, so there's fascinating market shifts. From the entrepreneur's perspective, what is it like for the entrepreneur to be going through the perhaps earlier growth stages of a food tech company versus some of the more mainstream industries that we know about?
So it's a very good observation, I would say, because when we look on the food tech entrepreneurs, most of them weren't CEOs before. So today,
Interesting.
if you look at the cyber and the communication startups, you see a lot of second timers, people that already built startups, maybe didn't succeed with them, but they know what is the startup. In the food tech area, a lot of these entrepreneurs doesn't know what is to be a CEO of a startup company, what is to raise money, what is to build the company, etc., etc. And this is something that we as Millennium are keen to help them and mentor them in order to do such kind of development, meaning personal development in order to be a CEO of a successful startup company.
Right.
And this is something that we put a lot of efforts on that. In the other way, we see CEOs coming from other industries that already have done something, mainly from the medical side. So they understand what is regulation, what is scale up, what is, do some clinical trials if needed, etc., etc. And then you can get some other, I would say, expertise and knowledge from and how to manage startup. But in many ways, we see that the entrepreneur, you have to mentor them, you have to help them. They don't understand what is a term sheet, what are the terms in the term sheet, what is fully diluted, what is preference rights, etc. And this is something that have to be have to teach them. In many ways, just one thing. In many ways, we take managers from the big the big companies in Israel, such as Tnuva, Nestle, etc. And then also they don't know what is to be a startupist. So this is the other way around, that understand the market, they understand what you need to do, they understand sales and marketing, but they don't understand what is it to build a startup, how to raise money, how to get the IIA grants and other funding, etc., etc. And this is also something that the VCs, the incubators, us are doing with these companies.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, when you do a due diligence process on a company in the food tech sector, do you think or do you observe that is it a similar process to traditional tech company that is perhaps doing software as a service or AI or cyber? How is your diligence process similar or different?
So basically, it is very similar. Plus, but you have to take into account the special parameters that are there for the food tech startup, such as regulation. This field is heavily regulated, and if you
Right.
don't understand the regulation, there is something that it's fundamental,
Sure.
something that you will fail with that.
Right.
So, but in other cases, it's very similar. Um, and I wanted to add on that when you look at these companies, you it's very easy to understand the size of the market. So the size of the market here is huge. You cannot be overwhelmed with this kind of big market. You have to find the niche that you are going to that you are going to, how you're going to penetrate, what is the go-to-market strategy. This is something that is very, very important in the due diligence process. And this is why one of our board members, Nitiloop, who held the managerial positions in Osem Nestle and with Nestle, is very good with and help these companies to have a strategy for go-to-market and to understand what is the go-to-market. She's coming from the marketing and managerial position. So this is how we built our team and directors to help the companies take them from the technology. Okay, I have a POC, I have a product. Now what I'm going to do with it, this is a huge something that you need to help these companies to take them to the next level.
Very, very, very cool. Chanan, I really want to thank you for coming here. I think we can continue this conversation for much, much longer.
Yeah.
But it was amazing to get a glimpse of your experience in the food tech sector, both in the Israeli ecosystem, but in general. And I have one last question for you. And if I were to ask any of your entrepreneurs or anybody around you, how would they describe Chanan in a few words? What would be a few words that would come to their mind?
I think very involved, very keen to help us, and a good person to partner with. So this is what.
I'll take it. Chanan,
and you can ask them, you can ask them.
I might just do that, and I appreciate it. I really appreciate this time. It was fantastic, and I learned a lot. So thank you, and stay safe and stay healthy, and best of luck with your current portfolio, with the upcoming portfolio, and for making a positive impact on our Israeli industry, but also in the way that humans are going to get food in the coming years, and I think it's going to be really exciting.
Exactly. Thank you very, very much, Michael, for this talk.
Thank you.